Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the line, now also inadvertently, ladies and gentlemen of the line Alberta. I am here today with Rob Breakenridge to do a very quick but very exciting announcement, and that is the line is branching out. We're getting into the provinces. We are about to launch the Line Alberta. This is going to be a separate feed where we have podcasts, stories, and op-eds devoted to all things Alberta. And joining me for this launch is Rob Breakenridge. Rob, who are you?
Yes. Jen, I'm so excited to be here, so excited to be a part of this. My name is Rob Breakenridge, as you alluded to. I've been in Alberta, well, my entire life, in fact. I've been in Calgary for about 20 years, spent just over 20 years in the broadcast radio industry, and some upheaval has led me to pursue some other directions as we sort of go through this media transition at a time when I think Alberta is going through a lot of really interesting transitions itself. So I think this is a great opportunity to launch this new endeavor, and just the way the line has come at these issues with intelligence, with an irreverent take. Very much looking forward to expanding that footprint more so in Alberta.
Fantastic. Well, if you are receiving this email or if you're receiving this podcast, chances are you have signed up for the line, which is going to maintain its hold as our big national brand. We've added you now to a separate feed, which is the Line Alberta. If this does not interest you, if Alberta content does not interest you, opt out, unsubscribe. You shouldn't have any challenges doing that. But we thought that if you were interested in the line, you might be interested in Alberta, because Alberta is proving to be, as per usual, a total hotspot for national politics. I mean, Rob, I live in Calgary, as you know. I think you live in Calgary as well. So we've both been here for a good long while. Alberta politics is always a soap opera, a total drama queen of a province, which makes it a lot of fun to cover as a journalist. But there's lots of stuff going on in Alberta politics, specifically Danielle Smith's time in office, some of the scandals that have plagued her office, some of the good and bad things her government has done and the UCP government has done. That we've got the rise of the NDP, we've got the emergence of Naheed Nenshi at the head of that particular movement. And then, of course, we have emerging separatist threat, a separatist movement as well. And we have Alberta and its relationship to Ottawa and the rest of the country. So these are all issues that I know that you're really keen to continue to dig into here at the line. Just top level thoughts, just in terms of where you think the province is at.
Well, it's interesting. Alberta used to have a reputation as being kind of a boring, sleepy place, at least politically. It started to change, I think, just kind of over 15 years ago, even going back to Ed Stelmach, and we went through this succession of premiers. In fact, Rachel Notley, weirdly enough, was the exception of these premiers who would win an election and not make it to the next one. So Danielle Smith is theoretically, I think, poised to do that. But even under Danielle Smith and just her whole ascent to power in the first place, just illustrates that continuation of the volatility in Alberta politics and everything else coming into play, what Alberta's gone through over the last decade, some of the ups and downs on the revenue, the royalty revenue roller coaster, the clash with federal policy, and of course, going through the whole pandemic, all of that, I think, conspiring to lead to Jason Kenney's downfall. So we've got all of that as a backdrop. And with the most recent federal election now behind us, we've got this added element, this conversation about Alberta's future in Confederation, which is probably louder in a lot of ways maybe than it's ever been. So with a new prime minister, with this premier, with this volatility within Alberta, things are very interesting right now, very lively right now, I would say.
So I would say take some personal credit for this, is that Alberta politics was extremely boring right up until the moment when I arrived in the province. And then it got fascinating.
No.
just a coincidence, just saying. So, and I'm not going anywhere. So I think it's going to continue to get extraordinarily interesting. It always struck me as fascinating. I came to Alberta to work at the Calgary Herald, and shortly thereafter was hired by the National Post as a national correspondent. And some provinces really don't interest the rest of the country. Poor British Columbia. Like there's always fascinating stuff going on in British Columbia, but it never seems to hold the national attention. But Alberta is just kind of one of those weird exceptions where there's always this place seems weird and foreign enough and doing its own thing to such an extent that it always attracts a lot of interest from the rest of Canada. This seems to be where a lot of, I would say, political currents from across North America have a tendency to roost. Political currents in America have a tendency to find a home here, which I think is very fascinating. I mean, one of the stories that's come out of Daniel Smith's government of late was that she's pulling funding for COVID vaccines, for example. That is, I think, very much a reflection of a political current that has its ultimate seeds in the South. This place has always been kind of a home for slightly more American style politics, which makes it not only more interesting in and of itself to cover if you're here, but also creates this sort of constant low level clash between Alberta and the rest of Canada. So it's a really, really interesting place to be, and it's a really, really interesting place to study. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're hoping to do with the Line Alberta, some of the approaches that you want to take?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity to get more in depth in some of these narratives that you talked about and what's going on here in Alberta, what's driving a lot of these conversations. And I think some of the people that are kind of at the center of this, that are driving these conversations themselves. I think it's a way for Albertans, we're part of this audience, to get a deeper understanding of what's going on here, more familiarity with who's behind all of this. I think for folks outside of Alberta, I mean, given Alberta's prominence, given Alberta's importance, Alberta's unique position right now, I think there is a lot of interest in what's happening right now. I mean, case in point is the fact that you've got the leader of the Federal Conservative Party of Canada, who's running here in a by-election in Alberta, what's seen as an uber safe conservative seat, but at the same time where there's this volatility and these dynamics that actually could make things kind of uncomfortable for Pierre Poilievre. So I think the rest of the country is looking at this saying, you know, what's going on in Alberta, or what's unique enough about Alberta where you've got a really safe conservative riding, and yet there's reason maybe for some nervousness on the part of the Conservatives. So it's an example, I think, of where there's a lot going on in Alberta, where there's a lot of interest in what's happening here. So I think for folks outside of Alberta, maybe to better understand the culture, the politics, what's going on here, I think there's a real opportunity to kind of bring that to that wider audience.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Battle River stuff is also very interesting. It doesn't baffle me that Pierre would choose to run in a by-election in Alberta, given what happened to him in Carleton. But there are lots of safe seats in Alberta he could have chosen. It sort of shocked me that he decided to go to Battle River instead of something a little bit more like maybe suburban Calgary, where he had family ties and links. It was an interesting choice.
You wonder if it's a question of who was willing to get out of the way. But I would imagine there would have been others willing to make that sacrifice. So it is an interesting choice. And you know, the thing is, he's still going to have to find somewhere to run in the next election, by the sounds of it, that this is only maybe a temporary arrangement. But yeah, I think, you know, even the political dynamics in Calgary are different than what you're going to see in a rural riding like in Battle River here. So I think that does present a different kind of challenge to Pierre Poilievre, even if it's seen as a little bit easier. Then you've got these other weird things going on. The longest ballot people want to get involved. So you've got all these other factors that conspire to make by-elections kind of wild and unpredictable. But yeah, I think it is an interesting, example, kind of cross-section of what's going on in Alberta, and even within Alberta, where you see these different political factors.
Yeah, the other interesting thing here is, of course, I have already received a note from somebody asking me if I wanted to write a book on the Alberta separatists. And I said, no, I really don't want to do that. One, because I don't think that the Alberta separatists would be particularly accessible to someone like me. I mean, they're a very sort of a bit of a closed group, right? They tend to talk to reporters and journalists who already agree with them. And I've been pretty staunch in my own lack of support for separation as even a cynical strategy. So I didn't think they would necessarily want to talk to me. And secondly, because I wasn't sure to what extent I thought that they were, how should I say this? It's hard for me to gauge how serious some of these people are. Like I think that there seems to be, on superficial polls, the idea of like 20% of Albertans are interested in separation. But I think when you delve into those polls and what that means, you're getting a real range of actual opinions, from screw Canada, I want to become the 51st state, to screw Canada, we're going to become Cascadia in my fantasy LARP land, to I don't actually really want to leave Canada because that doesn't look great. But if I say I'm a separatist, that will sure shove it in Ottawa's face, and I'm really pissed off at Ottawa. So it's really hard for me to want to consider the prospect of writing a book on something when I'm not entirely sure how lasting it will be as a cohesive movement. Also because I'm still not done my first book. So I really should there's that. But just I know that this topic is really fascinating to people who don't live here. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of talk out east about Alberta separatism as a serious movement and just a kind of bafflement about it, how serious it is, how serious it isn't. I mean, is that something that you want to get into here at the Line Alberta? Is this something that you think it's worth chatting about?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there is just, the question of what is this? Where's this coming from, to try to better understand what this movement is all about. Because I think in some ways it is almost not unlike the convoy, just kind of a big middle finger to the establishment, to the status quo, to the idea of Canada, or sort of the perception of what Canada is. And I think you're seeing some rebellion against that in an Alberta context, with some more Alberta specific issue around it. But there's the fallout from all of this too. What kind of impact does this have on Alberta when you've got this political volatility and uncertainty that this all creates? And maybe some semblance of a question of, are we going to be a part of this country in a few years? And what kind of impact does that have on investment climate here? What kind of impact is it having on politics here? I think, much like the convoy kind of put the fear of God into some conservative politicians, almost seems like kind of the separatist movement is doing that a little bit too. And I think you're seeing the reaction from Danielle Smith and her government and how they're trying to respond. I think you're seeing how Pierre Poilievre and the federal conservatives are trying to figure out how to respond to this. So it's got that dynamic to it. And it's interesting. It is very political. I mean, Quebec separatism is very different in that sense, isn't it? Where you can have conservative, right-wing, left-wing Quebec separatists. It's different here. So we've got Naheed Nenshi, leader of the Alberta NDP, who now finally is, getting out there, and they're going to be holding these town halls in Alberta, that we're better off together, which is kind of preaching to the choir, isn't it? I don't think you need to convince people on the left that Canada is worth saving. So it's almost a conversation uniquely happening on the right. And it'll be interesting to see how some prominent Alberta conservatives like Jason Kenney, like Stephen Harper, like Preston Manning end up fitting into this conversation. So I think there's a lot to tackle here.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to be getting into in the next couple of months here at the Line Alberta?
Well, yeah, like we said, there's a lot going on in Alberta. There's the big picture stuff that we talked about. There's some interesting things happening in Alberta too. I mean, to talk about what's happening with Alberta finances, right? For as much as we talk about Alberta as a conservative bastion or these conservative governments, Alberta has very big government in a lot of ways, and almost perhaps even unsustainable levels of spending, which has occurred under conservative governments. So what is the impact of that? Where's that taking us? I think there's some conversations to be had there. In terms of the political landscape, we see some changes as well even within the conservative movement, not just those who are kind of leaning to the right and looking maybe for a separatist option. You're seeing some in the Conservative Party who don't like where all of this is going, who think maybe they're being dragged too far to the right, and those who want to maybe bring back some kind of more moderate, sensible, centrist alternatives. So I think there's that happening as well. So there's a lot going on here.
Excellent. Well, I am looking forward to seeing what interviews we have to bring. Just again, to anybody who's getting this podcast and going, who is this? What's going on? Yes, this is a new thing. We're trying to do something new. We are launching a kind of a vertical to the Line on a separate channel, on a separate Substack. It's called The Line Alberta. If you are getting this, you're probably already signed up to read our missives or listen to our podcasts over at the Line's main channel. There will be some overlap. Sometimes if some of the stuff that Rob does or writes or that we publish over at the Line Alberta makes sense to run in a national context, we'll probably run it in the national channel. But, we really thought that there's enough news and enough interest in Alberta as a separate entity that it was worthwhile trying to expand the Line out to see if we could sort of cover some of what's happening in our province in a much more fine-grained way than we have previously. So, Rob Breakenridge, you are, just in case people aren't aware, you've been covering Alberta politics, writing about Alberta politics, talking about Alberta politics for 20 years now?
Very long time, yes.
Yeah, very, very long time. You've been in this game a long, long, long time. And so we are very much looking forward to seeing who you want to talk to and what you're gonna have to say. And for anybody who is just genuinely not interested in Alberta specific stuff, by all means, thanks for your consideration. Sorry for your time. Opt out if you want to. That's totally fine. But if Alberta is something that interests you as an Albertan or potentially as a member of the country that is interested in what's going on here, this may be worth your time. So come check us out and check out our main channel at www.readtheline.ca. I don't yet know what our main URL is going to be for the Line Alberta. I should probably look into that. But if you're getting this, you probably don't know before I do. Rob, when is your first podcast going to land? I think our plan is tentatively that it will be this week. So keep your eyes out. And
Wednesday, I believe, and each and every Wednesday.
Each and every Wednesday is kind of our plan at this point, and if that changes, we'll let you know. I'm also hoping to potentially write a little bit more about Alberta politics, specifically for the Line Alberta, and that would go on this feed, not on the Line's main channel. So that's it. Please check us out. Please like and subscribe. Please support us if you can, and I'm really looking forward to see what we do.
Me too.
All right. Talk soon. Cheers.